Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Dave Coker-Hook, and welcome to Reference Point. This evening, we're going to be talking about the automotive repair industry. Now, we did a show on the auto repair industry, a couple, 3 months ago. But tonight, it's going to be, I think, very interesting because I've got the ladies represented this evening. We have four co-owners of auto repair shops that are here to talk to us this evening. And we're going to go into looking at this whole arena from the woman's perspective, which I think should be very, very interesting. So, ladies, welcome to my show. Appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.
And and I'll introduce you all to the group of viewers out there. But Natalie, we're going to start with you, Natalie Pataki, and you own co-owner of the Sunnyvale Foreign Car Service here in Mountain View, right? Mm-hmm. And you have had the facility for how long now?
Well, for 46 years. And
46 years.
Mm-hmm, and I've only been in Mountain View for 10. And
well, that's you still qualify.
Yeah. And then I was in Sunnyvale for 36 years.
46 years in the industry, in the business. So I imagine you've seen a lot of change in this period of time, right?
I've seen a lot of change. I've seen the valley from just fruits and vegetables and trees to high tech.
And we're going to talk about some of that change as it pertains to the industry here, so I'm looking forward to getting a little more input from the four of you on that. Donna, we're going to go to you next, and we're just going to jump around a little bit. And Donna McCord, you're co-owner of Dean's Automotive, also here in Mountain View.
Yes.
And you guys have had your shop for how long?
Well, we've had Dean's Automotive just for 5 years. We bought Dean's in 2003. Mm-hmm. Before that, we were Warren McCord Motorsports. Also in Mountain View, actually just down the street from where we are now. And so when Dean's came up for sale, we bought it and merged the two companies together. But Dean's itself has been around since 1963.
Okay.
So and McCord Motorsports, Warren opened that. My husband opened that in 1979. So.
Okay.
It's been a while.
And you've been working at the facility now for how long?
Just since we bought Dean's, just 5 years. So I'm not a veteran as a lot of these ladies are.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, I never thought that I would be working in the automotive repair industry. So
I think you were telling me your background was in marketing.
Yes.
Okay. So but that actually I would think is going to be very useful and helpful in developing the business over at Dean's. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go back over to Lori, and Larry's Automotive is your store, and your husband was on the show when we had the men here, if I remember correctly, right?
Yes, he was.
And how long have you guys had your shop?
Larry's Auto Works has been around for 36 years.
36 years. Okay. And also here in Mountain View?
Here in Mountain View the whole time.
And you've been working with him since the beginning?
1979. I've always worked with him, and I did the books for him prior to that time, but full-time we've been together working in the business since 1979.
Great. And you were just before the show, you were saying that it's really a total family business because you've got...
Our daughter is also a co-owner.
Yeah.
And she's worked in the business for 12 years from the time she was in high school, along with many of her friends who learned the industry and learned, I think we were their first job in accounting and customer service, and just it was a great relationship to have them be part of our team.
Oh, very cool, very cool. So now, Mary Payne,
yes.
And you and your husband own the driving machine in Cupertino.
That's correct.
And I believe that's predominantly a BMW shop, if I remember correctly.
It is BMW, and then also the other BMW product, the Mini.
Oh, okay.
So we've added another car line with the Mini. And Jim started the shop almost 27 years ago. Mm. And then I started working with him in 1994. We were married in 1994. And
so you married into the business,
yes,
so to speak.
Did.
Okay.
I didn't, and like Donna, I didn't think I would ever be in automotive, but here I am, and it's a very interesting and exciting business to be in.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. I'd like the perspective from each of you on that, because two of you have mentioned, I never thought I might be in this business. What was it about your perception of the business that, before you got involved, and then now that you've been part of it for so long?
Well, for me, I think it's just because I always thought of cars as being a guy thing. And I really had no desire to learn how a car worked or and I always relied on the men in my life to take care of my car. So, that was not something that I was really interested in learning about. But after, being married to Warren and listening to him talk all the time about cars, and you kind of learn by osmosis,
Yeah.
And two, I was really concerned for, because it was like our business, even though I wasn't at the time working in it, it was our livelihood. And although I was working also at the time, but it was important to him, so it was important to me. And when I came on board, and when we made the decision for me to come on board and really, seriously become part of the business, it's been quite a learning experience over the past 5 years.
From both the running a business perspective and just the automotive industry perspective?
Absolutely, both. And especially when it comes to, and I know we're going to talk about this more later, but when it comes to women and what the perception of an auto repair shop is.
Yeah, that's a very interesting subject, and we might as well start digging into some of these things now. Natalie, you've had your shop the longest, so I imagine the trend, the evolution of who it is that brings a vehicle into the shop and who really is, what people are interested in knowing about everything has changed, because gone are the days when you can tinker with your own car. And so what have you observed?
Just a spark plug change or
right.
a battery in and out or something like that. But now today it's very technical, and you have to have high-tech equipment and machinery to diagnose a car today. It's no longer the backyard mechanic who thought that they could take care of their car. And we find it today that there's still a lot of people who think that they can take care of a car, and then they find out very shortly that it's computerized, and they do a lot more damage to their car than they could ever do.
Because if they mess up some of the logic, the computers are operating the car, then a whole bunch of other things cascade and start going wrong.
And then it takes us a lot of time to get in there and find out what they did, because the computer is the brains of the car. And if they've done something wrong, we have no idea until we put it on a machine.
So how do you find out what they've done?
How do we find out how they've done?
Run the normal diagnostic trees.
There's a lot of tests that you have to go through that people don't realize, that when they come in, they want to know what diagnostic time that you spend on the car. And sometimes it could be just very short. We can find out with a computer, but sometimes they've pulled a wire loose, or they've done something, and it would maybe take 2 or 3 hours to find out what they've done.
Man-made problems are worse than the computer problems, because you look at what normally breaks in a car. The technicians are very well trained to look at the normal problems, especially if they're specialists, and they say, well, this normally happens on a BMW or whatever. They've seen it many times. But when you involve a person, and a person starts changing something that's not usual, or same thing, we get undercar covers from the Bureau of Automotive Repair, and they'll pull something off that normally would never happen by itself. Those are the worst. And you spend a lot of time chasing circles because the normal troubleshooting trees don't work.
When you talk about troubleshooting trees, these are the diagnostic analysis processes.
You
that people
follow
go
a
through.
path, and if it's either yes or no, and wherever it goes, you go down the next tree, and yes or no takes you off into another tree. And it's very complex, and sometimes things can be diagnosed, as Natalie said, in 10 minutes. Sometimes it's 2 hours minimum, and then you go from there.
And most of that is being done on computer these days, is that correct?
Well, actually, the computer will give you it'll give you codes that will put you in a direction. But for example, just this last week, we had a car with 21 fault codes in 9 different control units. So it's up to the good, experienced, knowledgeable, well-trained technician to know what those mean, where to start with those, because it doesn't give you the complete story.
Right.
And you have to be able to, as Lori said, go down that diagnostic, and in some cases you may even have to replace a component to make sure that you get good readings. So it's a different ball game out there now. It's when I was growing up, of course, I had a VW with the battery in the back that no one ever checked my battery.
Right,
you
under
know,
the back seat.
kind of thing. And so, like Donna, I relied on the men in my family, especially my dad, to to help me with that. I would have never, ever imagined that the business could possibly get so technical and so involved as it has now.
Yeah.
Cars are, they're just so complicated now, and everybody's enjoying all of those,
Sure,
great,
all the nice bells and
fun
yeah.
things,
Yeah,
the bells
yeah,
and
the
whistles.
heated and
but-
cooled seats,
absolutely.
and the nav systems and all that sort of
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
Absolutely.
But when something goes wrong, it's not as easy as it used to
And
be.
not as inexpensive as
Yeah.
it
Not as
used to be.
expensive,
and
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like my husband said that cars, the newer cars today, they're like rolling computers.
Oh, they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And so, and it takes training and it takes education to understand.
equipment.
And
Let's
equipment.
talk about training, education, equipment. That ties into the technicians and the people that are actually doing the work on the car, doing the analysis and whatever. Since we're talking about women's perspectives here in the industry, is there an increasing number of women technicians? I was just kind of curious to know what the status of that is.
We have had some women technicians in the past. The biggest area we noticed there were challenges was just strength. When you're working with your hands over your head all of the time, there is definitely an exhaustion factor that happens, and I don't think most
tough.
people realize how much strength it requires to be a technician. You're lifting engines and transmissions. Yes, you do have the equipment to assist you, but you're still jockeying things around and crawling underneath dashes and doing things that really aren't very comfortable.
Yeah.
So we have had women in the past. We had one woman that when we did Volkswagen only, when it was air-cooled Volkswagen, she could pretty much put her hands on the engine and know what was wrong.
Yeah.
She was very sensitive about them, but she was an anomaly in our industry. Yes, there are women out there that can do it, but again, it's a choice. People have to really choose it to be something that they
I
want to
think
do.
it's an open field for women today. They wouldn't have to do the heavy work on the cars.
Right.
They could learn to do the diagnosis on the car and then pass it on to the mechanics, what they have learned too.
So does that mean that there's more of a segmentation of responsibilities, or there are? Let me put it this way: car comes into the shop. What process occurs? What happens from when it's in there and you start talking to the owner until you can actually do something for the car? What happens?
Well, first, you want to find out why they're coming in. Are they coming in for routine maintenance? Or are they coming in because they're hearing a sound that's just not quite right? Is their car using more gas, perhaps, than it had in the past? Or maybe the famous check engine light has just been illuminated. So, depending on what the problem is, it's up to the service advisor, which at our shop is either Jim or Dave, to talk to them, ask the right questions, and then we take it from there.
So the service advisor is the individual that you see when you first bring the vehicle into the shop.
Yes.
Okay, and then where does it go from there?
The technician
Technician.
gets dispatched
Yeah,
to the
we have a
technician.
technical worksheet that we give to the technician
Right.
of all the things that the customer has told us is wrong with their car. And then from there, these are all the things that they need for their car to be done, and the technician takes over. And then he reports back to the service writer, which is my son. And then they decide what needs to be done and call the customer.
So does the technician, the one that's doing the analytical work,
Yes.
the tests, do all the tests and
Right.
things to determine really what is the nature of the problem? But the technician isn't necessarily the person that performs the repair.
In
Oh,
our
yes.
shop, they
Oh,
do.
yes.
Well,
Yes,
they do.
yes,
Oh,
okay.
yeah,
Yes.
they do.
Okay.
They write
Yes.
up in our shop.
So
they
they
write
do
up
both.
the estimate
They do
also,
both,
and
okay.
they tell the service advisor what's wrong, why something needs to be replaced, if it's leaking, if it's broken, if it's cracked, if it's a preventive maintenance item, so that customers can have a list, so to speak, of this has to be done now. This is an elective. This is a preventive maintenance. This is a safety issue.
Got
They
it.
need to know how to prioritize
And
them.
what's great nowadays too is that, and I'm sure this is true for all our shops, is that the technicians have resources out there online, and like All Data and Identifix and other resources that we as shops pay for
Right.
to have, which a lot of people don't understand either. And it's not, it's not inexpensive to have
Sure.
those resources, but they're invaluable because that helps the technician if he runs into something that's unusual or something he's not sure about. He can either get online and talk to other technicians, or he can, go to an expert. I mean, we have connections to, the manufacturer's data as well, so that if there's been a recall or something, we can alert the customer to that. So it's really wonderful.
And each other.
And each
Yeah.
other,
We're,
right.
we're in an
Right.
association together.
That's
We're
true,
in
too.
Automotive Service Councils of California, and we're friends.
Right.
friends.
And
We
we've
talk
had-
to each other.
yes.
They're the BMW expert. If we run into something that our European guy just, catches him off guard, we'll call Jim and find out if they've ever seen it before, because we are friends with each other. We know there's plenty of work to go around, and
There
we
is.
only make each other look better,
Better.
by being able to solve the customer's
Sure.
problem.
Right.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, this area of diagnosis and in the high-tech industry, I spent 20 some odd years in the computer software business, and I know from having had my computer have a problem, you call up and the guy said, well, is it plugged in? Have you turned it on? But there's this series of what you think are inane type questions that they start asking you so that they can start checking things off the list.
And saving you money.
Yeah, saving you money
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
getting down to things. And with vehicles as complex as they are today, it makes all the sense in the world that you would need to go through a set of diagnostic processes in order to really
Absolutely.
figure out what's going on with the vehicle.
Absolutely.
And I think most people don't think about that. They bring the car in, they say, fix it. Okay. And then they're going to look at their bill at the end and say, holy mackerel, what's going on here? But they're not thinking about those things, yeah?
Well, actually, they will at all of our shops. They will get an estimate,
Before.
Yeah.
to check it out. So there is no surprise.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
There is no surprise. Now, if you do find something else in the checkout, and as I said, in some cases with the electrical problems, in some cases you may need to replace a part before you can find out whether your readings are good. Maybe you know that your battery has failed, and this is why you're having 121 fault codes. But there's no surprise because you do get your estimate, and that is what you know what you're paying for at that time. And diagnosis, many years ago, when cars were less complex, people would be able to tell you for free. And
Yeah, right.
those days pretty much are gone. It's just, it's too expensive, it's too complex. Our technicians, our labor, as far as part of our expenses at our shops is it's high, and it's part of the changing industry.
We had talked earlier about how this relates to if you go to the doctor
Right.
and you have tests run. You're going to pay for them, or your insurance company is going to pay for them. In our case, most people don't have mechanical insurance, so they pay for it, so it hurts a little bit more. But we're still doing the same thing. We're finding out that, in fact, it isn't this problem, just
Right.
like the doctor can tell you what it is and what it isn't.
Sure.
Or we can say it is this, we need to replace this part. Then we're going to do a check. Then we can continue down the troubleshooting tree to make sure that the rest of the system is now functioning properly. Because the thing with computers now is when one component goes out, it can take out two or three if you don't take care of them. And many times we can't guarantee a part unless we replace all three of
The
them.
whole series. That makes sense.
And usually Matthew, that's my son, he tells them about how much he thinks that it's going to cost, and then he does the diagnostic work on it. And then he also tells them that if it takes a shorter period of time, that it won't cost as much as what he told them originally.
So communication
Absolutely.
becomes truly important
It's the
here.
most
Setting
critical part.
expectations, and it sounds like, from clearly all of your shops are doing that, and I would suppose that the really good shops actually do take care of that sort of thing. I want to move into a topic now about the makeup of the people that are bringing vehicles into the shops today. Okay, because I was reading some things online, and you ladies were telling me about some of this before, but the percentage of patrons that are bringing their vehicles in that are women today versus 15 years ago or so is huge. And I think you were saying 60
70%.
or 70% of the people.
Over 50 for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what's different now about the interaction between your clients and the technicians and things like that than it was?
Expectations. I think they want a clean place to come to. They want to be able to sit down and be able to go back to work without any grease on them, which we want too. We're in the shop all day too, and I think that if anything, by us being in our shops, we have set the tone to make it female friendly. They want to be respected when they come in, to be able to give information to the technician or to the service advisor clearly, and to understand while the service advisor is asking questions that it's not to make them look stupid, but it's to be able to do some pre-diagnostic work ahead of time, to have some information to be able to relay to the technician that's going to give him value. Does it clunk on right turns only when it's warm or cold? You know, does it make these noises first thing in the morning or later on in the day? All of those things are going to save people money. We have diagnosed a car over the phone when somebody put their phone up to the noise, and then we knew what it was because they couldn't describe it. So, you know, there are many ways that people can really help themselves, or maybe for them to not respond too quickly when they hear something for the first time. They might drive by and say, should I worry about this? How often does it happen? Well, it's been once. We might want to wait until it's happening on a regular basis. Yeah, so we can recreate this, because I don't know about you, but I don't like getting something that says could not recreate the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So the way that we can recreate the problem is for it to happen often enough.
I think the women today, too, are very intelligent in this valley because we live in high tech. And I think that they want us to respect them, that they know a lot. And they might not know a lot about the cars, but they don't want to feel belittled or something. That, you know, we respect them enough to listen to what they need to have done to their car, if it is a check engine light or whatever it is.
And I know, like, we have in our lobby, we've got a whole bunch of flyers that we put together that describe certain procedures, you know, that we can give to people, you know, while they're waiting or whatever, just to help them kind of get a more, you know, with pictures.
I've seen those, and they're very good.
And just, it's more of a visual, you know, tool, so that they have some kind of understanding of why it's more complicated than they thought. You know?
The other thing you want to do is you want to keep it, you want to, for me, I want the car taken care of. I don't want surprises. So in our business, about also 70% is maintenance.
Right.
We work on the car, we set it up so that we'll see them every 6 months or 6,000 miles, that the car's not going to break in between, and if it does, it's really unexpected. We don't see many people towed in that are our normal customers. And they expect that the car is going to work that long. So we want to make sure we're telling them what needs to be done to make it last for 6 more months successfully.
And I think when you build a relationship with your customer also, they feel that they can call you up and they can say, Matthew or Natalie, can you fix our car today, or can you please look at it? And we build a reputation with our customer that they can pick up a phone and come to us. They
It's
don't
all
feel
about
afraid.
trust.
Trust and
It's
asking questions.
trust.
And
It sounds like, from what you're describing, that your service writers and your technicians are, they rather there be questions and answers going
Absolutely.
on.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, and if you think about it, we're like doctors. When people come to us, they want something taken care of. They want their and so there is definitely a trust to make sure that we're going to give them a good, clean story. We're going to give them exactly what needs to be done, nothing more, nothing less. And that, for us, we like to have people bring their car to us for everything. Because it's like going to the doctor. If you go to 10 different doctors and none of them know what's happening, it's really hard to build a relationship and know what you don't need to look at with extra heavy focused eyes. If everything is coming, we can reference the work that's been done before, double check those things if they think there might be a problem, and go from there. You're going to save money when you're taking it one place.
Let's. We've only got a few minutes left in the show, so let's talk a little bit about the maintenance side of things, because you've all pretty much mentioned this and as being an important thing, and I think still most people are in the habit of, if it's broke, then I try to get it fixed. as opposed to what should I do so that it doesn't break, right?
Some people are, yeah.
Yeah, some? Because you're seeing more and more folks recognize
Yeah,
the...
I think so. I think especially customers that we've had for a long time.
Yeah.
They're very well trained now.
Yeah, and I have some customers that are third generation,
Yes.
so
Oh,
that
okay.
makes it really nice.
Yeah.
So like the father, the grandfather, the children are coming now, and
Oh, great.
they feel very comfortable that they can call us and say, can you help us out?
Right.
The maintenance on the BMW, you know, they actually call these inspections rather than maintenance. And the car is to be inspected. We actually had a customer a few weeks ago. She was lamenting that every time she went to the dealership to get an inspection, they found something.
Yeah.
But that is the idea, that if there is something that's marginal, that you will find it before it becomes a larger problem. So when you're taking your car in for your regular scheduled maintenance, your inspections, at our shop we also do a courtesy check that's very extensive, with the even with the oil service. So you don't break down, and that is the idea,
I
is
think
to
that's
keep
That's
you
the
on
goal.
the road
Keep
and
the
keep you
car on
happy
the
with
road
your
and
BMW.
bring it in when you need to. We are reaching the point where we've got less than a minute left in the show, if you believe that. It
That
goes
went
by
so quickly. It went so quickly.
But I wanted to say that I appreciate the input that you've given, because what we've done is, the perspective that you're bringing to the viewers here about the industry, the business, as you've lived it for so many, each of you, for a number of years. And I think this whole idea of trust, of recognition, of being able to make it a family-friendly environment and a woman-friendly environment, I think is very, very crucial. And the associations, et cetera, I'm sure assists in that. So thank you for coming. Thank you for being here and participating in the show. And we'll have to do something like this again, because I'm sure there's a lot more for us to talk about.
Oh, yes.
So,
I was thinking about that.
yeah, indeed, indeed. But for now, we're going to have to say good night to the ladies, good night to the viewers, and appreciate your being here for Reference Point, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.